Hi, I'm Dr. Nadine Wong. Would you like to know the expression of a man? Well, join me on the Now Talk Show. The Now Talk Show is an intimate conversation with men to highlight the pivotal awakening from his past that has brought him from trials into triumph into the now. The Now Talk Show will be sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic. Please stay tuned.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are viewing the Now Talk Show. Thank you so very much for joining us on another exciting episode of the Now Talk Show. Today, we not only have one, but we have two distinguished gentlemen. And I don't know how we're going to fit such a great power in a 45 minutes to an hour session. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage. We call for it, Christopher Duff and Nicholas Barham. Please, gentlemen, come forward. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Now Talk Show. Thank you so very much for accepting our invitation. Now, for those of you who are watching, let me just take this opportunity to say the Now Talk Show is the opportunity or a safe platform for men to express themselves. We believe that when a man speaks, it shapes the world. So we have two distinguished gentlemen. I'm not sure who I should say to go first. So I'm going to just throw the question out there and then we'll see who will just start. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do, gentlemen, we want to know who, who is Christopher Duff? Where were you born? And really what drives you? Let's start with that question. And Christopher, I'll ask you to go first. And of course, Nicholas, you could follow behind.
Sounds good. So welcome everyone again. Dr. Wong, I want to thank you first and foremost for the invitation. I would also like to thank you for just this space and this platform that you've created. Phenomenal work. And to your team working behind scenes as well.
Oh, yes.
Thank you all so much. And then to Nicholas, my partner in change, and then to the rest of the authors who are viewing, thank you all so much. So in terms of who I am, Christopher Duff, that's my name, and I am from Toronto, Canada, born and raised in Mississauga, but I like to claim the 6, all right, as my home. And parents are from the Caribbean. I've been back there maybe once, got sick, said to myself, I don't think I'm going to go back, at least not for the foreseeable future. And in terms of what drives me, I think...
Wait a minute now, Christopher.
Okay.
Is it because you got sick, you don't want to talk about where your roots and culture is from?
No.
Okay. Because I know I would like to know, and if I want to know, I'm pretty sure the audience wants to know. What is your background? Where is your heritage coming from? You don't have to go as far as Africa, but perhaps
I haven't done the what is it, the my ancestry just yet, but from the Caribbean, Jamaica specifically. Jamaica stand up. So my parents are from Jamaica, and I was born here. Okay. And so in terms of the mission that I'm on, or what drives me, I think the biggest thing for me is that I want to help people discover who they are. I want to help people to discover that spark or that nucleus that's inside of them, and then help them draw that thing out. I think that so many of us, I don't want to cannibalize Nick's time, but I feel that so many of us are walking around like empty shells, fortified on the outside. If we look at let's say our identity from two perspectives, and I'm simplifying it, we have our personal identity and we have our professional identity. And I think we have systems, we have infrastructure, we have institutions that are set up in a way and designed in a way to help us develop our professional identities. But then when it comes to our personal identities, many of us are walking around just like an empty shell. And so I am on a mission to really help people discover who they are, discover what they're capable of, and in many ways discover why they're here on this planet. And so that's what wakes me up in the morning, and that's what puts a smile on my face.
So, I mean, all of that is great, but Mr. Duff, please, Can you share with us, were you raised in a single family home, mother and father? Like, what was that like?
So I was raised with both my parents,
Okay.
mother and father, as well as three sisters. So
Ah,
you can visualize what that household was like. Only boy. I was also the only boy, second oldest.
okay.
And so yeah, growing up, I should say, with both parents in the family or in the home was phenomenal. But I often say that my father, as phenomenal as he was, I would consider him to be a distracted father, in the sense that, if you're watching that, in the sense that he was a workaholic, a very
Okay.
ambitious man, constantly working, and
Mhm.
so he didn't necessarily have a lot of time for me specifically.
Right.
And then, so I think that was the biggest, I think, drawback. But
Okay.
definitely two-parent family.
Wow. Nicholas, I mean, you've heard Mr. Duff. Let's hear what you have to say in
Wow,
terms of.
I don't know how I'm gonna top that. I mean,
Wrap it up, Nick. Wrap it up.
oh my gosh, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. So I'm Nicholas Barham. I was born in Toronto as well. To parents of Jamaican heritage.
Okay.
Um, I currently reside in Whitby, so just outside of Toronto.
That's
I'm a
my
father.
city.
Okay, okay. Whitby, stand up.
That's
I
right.
have two wonderful children and a wife.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married for almost 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a child and youth worker by profession, so I work in the school
Mm-hmm.
board,
Mm-hmm.
trying to work with students.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also worked in the youth justice system as well, and the group home system, so child welfare. And
So,
so,
Mr. Brown, can I do the same thing as well? Can you tell us a little bit? Are you from a single parent home, two parent home? We want to build the meat and potatoes to.
okay.
Oh,
So I was raised in a single parent household.
mhm,
My parents divorced or split when I was very young.
mhm.
So I spent split time. So sometimes I spent weekends with my father, and then most of the rest of the time was with my mom and my older sister.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you already know that this is going to be a double explosive show. Can you just feel the energy with these two distinguished gentlemen? I want to just take a pause just to say the Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, integrative medicine, and of course, trichology. And without further ado, gentlemen, there's so much on combined together. Your buyers are so saturated with meat and potato of just a mission to help, and particularly youths. Now, I would like you to share. I don't. This is just a question. You guys can take turn or so on. This was just a question. Why the youths?
Mm. So
I don't know if you're going to do the raise the hand type of thing, or snap, or scratch the nose, or but why
yeah.
the
I'll hop in there. If I can, before I even get into that, I would love to just really shout out my wife. I have to get used to this. It's been about 3 months since we've been married now, and I got to get used to it. I got to get used to it. Thank you, Nicholas, for the reminder. But shout out to my wife, Anna Duff. Okay, so
you know that we have that. This is the platform for men. There is no way you gentlemen would have come on my platform and not shout out the one you love.
Yes.
So you're going to have to do it again when I do the prompt later on, okay? So go ahead.
Fair enough. Okay, so in terms of, for me, why young people? I think the biggest thing is that it's rooted in my own experience. And I felt that growing up, I had a very non-linear path. I dropped out of high school. I was working full-time when I was 17 years old in a warehouse picking orders. And just general labor work, and I felt that there were so many other youth within my network that were in a very similar situation. And one of the biggest things that we had lacked was guidance. We lacked mentorship in many ways. And so I think looking back on my life and seeing the certain gaps that I feel that a mentor or a guide or a support could have been very helpful. That is essentially who I want to be for young people, to be that very person that I felt I needed as I was growing up. That would prevent me from getting into a lot of trouble. That would, just help me to navigate certain seasons of my life. And so I think for me, that is beyond the cliche that youth are the future. I think that's the biggest piece there. Just wanting to be that person that I felt I needed when I was younger.
You identify the troubles. What type of troubles did you obviously went through and overcame? What were they?
Oh boy, how much time do we have here? I will say it's interesting because I will say that not a lot of my challenges that I experienced was let's say gang related or drug related. A lot of it came from mental health challenges.
Okay.
Just the issues of the challenge of not understanding who I am and not understanding where I fit in, and then the bullying, and then the issues at home, and I just feel that a lot of my issues were internal, and if I had somebody to kind of speak wisdom and speak life into me, it would have paid dividends. It would have been invaluable for that. So that's where a lot of my challenges came from.
Okay, Mr. Nicholas Barr.
So I chose to work with youth because there's a multitude of reasons, but one of the big reasons is that in my neighborhood that I grew up in Malvern in Scarborough, and that's a neighborhood in Toronto, and so that's for people who aren't from Toronto. So there are a lot of challenges in that neighborhood. Drugs, gang violence, tons of things to fall into. But we had one gentleman in our neighborhood named Ricky Francis, and Ricky Francis somehow found a way to know every single kid in the neighborhood. Knew your name. Somehow he knew your astrological sign. Like he would see you, Nicholas, Aquarius, every time. Like it was amazing. And in my journey of trying to get to higher education, trying to figure out what I want to do, I saw the Child and Youth Work program, and it immediately made me think of him and the impact he had on me, because he was one of the people who allowed me to be seen and allowed me to feel validated just by walking by and knowing my name and my astrological sign. And so
seriously, he knew your sign?
100%.
What is your sign?
I'm an Aquarius.
What is your sign?
I'm an
Okay,
Aquarius.
all right, continue. Okay,
and so
continue.
Every single time he saw us, it wasn't just me. Everybody knew him in our neighborhood, and I knew that being seen was an important feeling. And so I decided to work with youth as a profession, just to make sure I can show love and share love with young people.
Okay, so so he allowed you to be seen, but where were you hid when he found you? In a sense, now for you to be seen, what were you going through?
Well, they're not having a father full time. That was a place that I was hidden in the shadows with my friends as well. Like all of us, most people in my neighborhood, we didn't have our dads around, and so we could easily get lost in endless battles of territorial behavior or fighting and all these things. I wasn't involved. My mom didn't play. But it was easy to get lost there, and I'm glad he found us.
So Ricky obviously came on board, and he did an amazing impartation onto you. I'm sure there were many, but what was the one thing that, if you could say this was the awakening moment with your interaction with Ricky, what would it be?
I don't know if there's one. I really just think it's just knowing that there's someone that you could see in the neighborhood that looked like you, that you felt like they actually cared. And it wasn't like one singular moment. It was kind of like a combination of, every time you see me, you remember me. You don't forget me.
All right.
So
okay. Yeah. Well, listen, I think you should shout out Ricky, because I'm not sure if you're still communicating with him.
I haven't spoken to him in a few years, but I definitely have let him know.
You have,
for sure.
And to all the Rickies out there, I tell you, man, this interview is going to get deeper. I could feel it. Well, gentlemen, where do we start? I think the book. I want to go directly to the book. Like, I know you guys are very well developed gentlemen. You guys are presidents and founders of various organizations and so on. But this book that required 4 distinguished gentlemen, I mean, we're talking to half of the half. So, what was the inspiration behind this book, and what roles did you guys? Okay, we also have it on our link as well.
Yeah.
And what roles did you like? What chapters did you guys choose, and why? I don't know who wants to go first.
Okay, I guess.
You want to go?
Go ahead.
One at a time now. One at a time.
So we're actually less than half. There's 10 of us.
Yeah,
There's
10 of
10 gentlemen.
10. Oh wow.
There's 10.
Are we
and
interviewing all 10?
I think you are.
Oh well,
I
listen.
think you
Okay,
are.
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's talk about the chapters that you guys wrote. What was the inspiration, and of course, the inspiration behind the book.
And so the book generally is about perseverance and us 10 men standing up and going through challenges and getting back up. And
Why the number 10? Why not 12, 13? Why 10?
I think 10 was hard enough to get together. It's like herding cats, right? Like it's hard to get 10 people together and get on the same page. And so, yeah, you know, there's definitely, it would be nice, more the merrier, but 10 was a nice round number that we ended up at.
Okay.
And
so,
everyone, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I would like you to talk about your contribution, your chapter, and the inspiration behind the book.
Okay, so 10 of us got together and everyone wrote one chapter. And my chapter was just about a situation or in my life where I had to overcome a challenge. And my challenge was in the educational system. I struggled all the way through school until probably I got to college. And in the 10th grade, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And I was also put on medication. And so that diagnosis was a pivotal moment for me because I had already built up a script in my mind about how I felt about myself, how I felt about my intelligence, how I felt about education. And that diagnosis was actually a relief for me.
Okay.
And, it kind of gave me a pivotal moment where I could make a decision. And that's what my chapter is about. It's just kind of talking about when you got given a label, it can mean the end of the world or it can mean a new decision.
Wow. Okay. So you had a dyslexia, and then they diagnosed you with a learning disorder, and they gave you an antidepressant. Tell us about that actual transaction and the awakening part, like really in detail.
So it wasn't. I was diagnosed with ADHD. I didn't have dyslexia.
Okay.
But I was diagnosed in the 10th grade. But leading up to that, I'd been falling behind like all the time. I was often in the office, often disrupting the class. I was, you know, it was a lot of work. And so the script that I was telling myself was that you're dumb, you're not worth it. Like you're never going to be able to pass this class. You're never going to be able to get through school. Don't even think about post-secondary. And then in the 10th grade, let me backtrack back to the 9th grade, first year of high school. I failed the 9th grade. I even failed art. I don't know how, somehow failed art.
That's okay.
And you know, that was a really hard moment for me. Back in Toronto, we had schools called BTIs. And basically it was a business and technical institute. And in my opinion, at that time, those were like housings for where the tough kids went. And they suggested that's where I go. And my mom and my aunts, they really fought and advocated for me to stay in regular mainstream school because I think we were getting shoved over to that side. And then my mom got me tested because she tried everything she could. I went to tutors. I went to every tutor system in the city. And when I got tested, it kind of gave me an opportunity to look at myself and say, okay, well, maybe you're not dumb. Maybe you just learn differently. And maybe you need to look at education in a different light. And so that's what the diagnosis meant for me. Okay,
and that's what your chapter is about, without giving too much of the book.
Without giving too much, yes.
So how long did it take for you to write the chapter?
Wow.
And was there any emotional release?
There was, and it was really a lot of like a lot of self-reflection while I was writing and thinking back to how I felt at the time, and kind of really trying to chime in on how much it affected me and affected the way I view myself. And so yeah, it took a while. I mean, I went through a few drafts, and tried to, but it took a while, but it was definitely at the end very relieving.
Wow. You healed yourself that way.
I think
writing is very therapeutic.
Absolutely.
So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And of course, Mr. Duff, it's your hour. Please tell us about your chapter and the inspiration behind it.
For sure. Before I even get into that, I do want to give a shout out to Jeff A.D. Martin, who was I guess you can say the brainchild. He was a brainchild of this entire project.
Okay.
He had called us all up, and he had said, "Hey, I want to do this project. Never been done before by 10 Black men."
Okay.
And so I said, "I'm in. Let me know where to sign." And so yeah, it was a phenomenal project. It took about 3 years, I believe it is, almost 2.5 to 3 years from inception to publication. So yeah, that was great. In terms of my particular contribution or my chapter, really about that the whole idea I mentioned earlier about identity and discovering your identity and recognizing that we're in a system that doesn't necessarily care about your purpose, your passion, but really is driven by profit. And so in the midst of all of that, how do you discover who you are, as opposed to thinking that you're meant to be a cog that fits into someone else's machine, and that think that, or as opposed to also thinking that, your life is summed up to just working just to pay bills, and then eventually you die. How do we break out of that? How do we break out of that mindset, that curated and molded mindset? So that's really what my chapter is about. And so I divided into 4 parts. The first part being the conflict, where I speak to people around the world that are having this internal struggle or this internal identity crisis, where they're beginning to recognize very faintly that that who they have become may not be who they were meant to be. And so they're beginning to have these feelings of, is there something greater out there for me? And if there, what would that look like? And so they're beginning to, again, have this sort of conflict between who they have become and possibly who they were meant to be. And then I explore this idea of discovery. So that's the second segment, where I walk people through this idea of asking that big critical question of who am I? And being willing to embrace the fact that you may not know, but really leaning in to that piece. That, again, that critical question of who am I? And not necessarily who my friends say that I am, not necessarily who my past traumas try to dictate I become, but who am I at my core? What are my strengths? What are my abilities? What are my quirks? What are my idiosyncrasies? So all of those pieces, and so I have this sort of philosophy, this 3E philosophy, where if you want to go on this verge of discovering who you are, you want to expose yourself to new things, you want to explore, and then you also want to experiment with it as well. The third piece is this idea of unlearning. So once you now are at this sort of precipice of recognizing that who you are, you may not be who you're meant to be, there's this sort of void that's created. So if I'm not who I've identified myself with for perhaps decades, then who am I? And this is very, very uncomfortable feeling. But in many ways, we have to recognize that there's a lot of stripping away that we need to do. We're often nurtured in this in environments, and then we become products of that environment without even recognizing it. And I will never forget, there was a story. My wife is an environmentalist, and there's a story that she shared with me about domesticated wolves. And she had said to me that, wolves that are raised in captivity, there's particular teeth, there's these molars that that they will not grow because there's no need for them being when they're in captivity. But if the wolves are raised in the wild, then they will grow those molars because they need to cut apart meat and things like that. And I just thought that was so incredible, and it was so representative of many of us humans, because we grow up in environments that do more to stifle than to cultivate, we often live way below our potential and our capacity. And so for me, it comes back to this idea of unlearning. Stripping away all of the things some of the things that you thought you knew as truth, and many of the things that may be hurting and preventing you from moving forward. And so that was the third segment. And then the last segment just speaks to this idea of the conquest. So now, how do you release your purpose into the world? How do you possibly turn your purpose into profit? Just this idea of you operating at a higher frequency than you were before. So that's kind of my chapter in a nutshell. And yeah, it just kind of speaks to my whole ethos in my life. Just again, waking people up and helping them to recognize that there's so much more to life than just working to pay bills and then dying. That's really it.
How many chapters? How many chapters are in the book?
I believe there's 10 chapters in the book. Yeah.
How many pages?
Nicholas, you want to pull that up really quick?
So we're at about 223.
Okay, so this is a good read. This is a good read. Okay, I'm getting my copy, and I would like it signed, of course. Now, it is said that behind every great man, there is a great woman. Now, with 10 great minds that came together and produced an awesome book, was there any female encouragement, point of view? And I really think, Mr. Duff, you've just pointed out your wife shared something. I don't know if that was a part of an inspiration that you weren't even aware of that really developed your chapters. But was there anything written from a female's point of view in this book?
So I'm going to say not directly written from a female perspective, but I would be very surprised if our partners, for the men that co-authored the book, were not influenced in some way, shape, or form by the women in their lives in some capacity. I know, I believe in the book, there's some men that even speak to, I know Danny specifically, Danny Stone, one of the authors, phenomenal guy. I know he's watching now. He speaks heavily about his grandmother and his grandmother's influence in his life. So I am sure that every man on this in this book was influenced in some way by a woman, and in terms of their writing. I also think it's funny because I was talking to Rob on Saturday, who is the producer of the AV support for the chat, and we were talking, and I was saying that it's interesting that not necessarily surprising, but it's interesting that a significant part of our audience is women. And it's not really a surprise because you know that women have a desire to learn more about men.
Yes, we do.
Then we went into this entire conversation about there being, it just goes to show or be a sort of a testament to the fact that there's this communication gap between men and women. Because women want to know more, but men are kind of sitting back, not really saying more. And so any opportunity that women get to learn more about men, they hop on it. And so it's interesting to see that our audience has organically grown to be women.
I am looking at some in-house texts, and if you gentlemen had not pointed out your status, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten. Tell me how, where, and so on. And what is so beautiful about your expression is you're publicly expressing your love, both of you, to your wife. For ladies in waiting, even married women, it says something because the stigma. Men don't express themselves. It's like, as you describe it, in a nut type of thing. And even to get in a nut, there's an art. There's an art, right? So sometimes if the front door doesn't open, there is a very clever way to kind of move around, say, the back or the side to get into the nucleus and so on. And this is really what you're doing. So thank you for sharing that. Did you want to add anything to that, Nicholas?
I think you got it.
He got it.
You got it.
Wow. So when you guys were writing this book, you said it took around 3 years to write the book. Now, what sacrifices it took? Family time, relationship time?
That's a great question. I don't know if there was any, for me, I don't know if there was any direct sacrifices.
Yes.
But a question that I actually wanted to answer that I never got a chance to was about the sort of therapeutic piece of it. I think the biggest thing for me is that in my story, a lot of my trauma, I had suppressed that over the years, something that I wanted to forget. And so in a way, writing this book, I had to relive some of that in order for me to pen it the way that I really wanted to pen it. And I found myself in many ways just in tears as I was writing the book. And I'm like, man, I didn't know thinking about this thing intellectually would sort of produce this amount of emotion again.
Yes.
I thought I would repeatedly say, I thought I got over this. I thought I got over this. I thought I got over this. And so for me, I think, I don't want to say that, there was a sacrifice of peace of mind, but I think that was the most disruptive thing for me, is just having to relive some of this trauma and then kind of pen it and then release it out into the world for all to critique, consume, and all of that stuff. So,
okay, so you guys obviously had great mentors. This book, of course, is going to be a mentor to the youths. What do you think these young youths are going to come back and say to you? What do you think they will get from the book that will be paying it forward as men who have helped you in the past?
Well, what I'm hoping from my chapter, and I think most of us are hoping the same, is that they are able to be seen. They are able to recognize themselves in our stories or somewhere in the lesson. And I think that it's important that they see themselves and they see that there is ways to persevere through tough situations. And I think for me, that's probably the most important way that I hope that this reaches people.
Can I build on that really quickly? I think
of course.
I think the beauty of the book as well is that it sort of speaks to different seasons of our lives, of the author's lives. And so there's no way that you can read that book and not find yourself in somebody's story. And so to Nicholas's point, I think that is the phenomenal piece about it. And if I could also just add as well, I think that, for me, I think my hope is that the biggest thing that somebody gets from that is that there's somebody, that they are somebody, and that what they're going through, not to allow that to be a period where there should only be a comma. I didn't come up with that saying. There was a preacher that said that somewhere. Not to allow a period to be where there should only be a comma. And I think that's the biggest thing. Every single one of the authors now, in some way, shape, or form, they are popping in their industry. Like, they are doing very well. And that, in the book, we talk about our lowest points, the lowest points of our life. And we were able to overcome and be who we are today. It's powerful. It's powerful.
Yes, it is. It is. I mean, the very mandate of the show is talking about the pivotal point that brings the pivotal point that brings you to your awakening. And I'm sitting here so honored before two distinguished gentlemen who have gone through something. It wasn't. It is not a facade. I feel the energy. It is so real. Whenever a man opens and talk about emotion, I mean, this is actual tears that happen. Did you actually cry?
Yeah,
exactly. And as real as that is, that in itself is healing for so much. So is there anything else you wanted to express about the book? Because I wanted to talk a little, or for you guys to talk a little bit about your professional life, just a little bit, so the audience kind of get a balance. That you guys are authors, but in terms of your professional life, what is it that you guys are doing? And perhaps you guys can also share your platform so we can also promote your work as well. So please, Mr. Duff, there's a point that you shared that you drop out of school. And when I look at your bio, I see you're the founder and president of all these great innovative corporations. So can you pick the story up from you dropped out of school and then now you are a founder and a president? Can you kind of put those pieces together for me?
Sure. So I think, so as I mentioned earlier, I dropped out of high school when I was 17 years old. My parents just found out about that actually a few weeks ago.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
They never really wondered why I never had any grad photos or anything like that. But yeah, they just found out about a few weeks ago. So I dropped out of high school when I was 17 years old for a myriad of different reasons: social reasons, family reasons, financial reasons, a lot of mental health reasons as well. And so, as I mentioned before, I was working at a general labor type job, and I was having conversations with a number of people. I was always very inquisitive, still now, very inquisitive, asking a lot of questions. And I was working with folks that were significantly older than I was. So some of them were, 50s, 60s, going on to retirement. And so I kind of just sit under them and just soak up the wisdom.
Yes.
And one of the questions that I would often ask is this it for you? Like, is this it for you? And the level of regret that I would often see in their faces, it was very disheartening and very scary. Again, I'm 17 years old, and I'm seeing these people, working in this company for 15, 20, 25 years, and they have this level of regret. So I say to myself, this can't be my life. I can't afford for that to be my life, where I'm approaching 50, 60 years old, and I do not feel like I'm accomplished. I do not feel satisfied with where my life is. So I actually ended up going back to school, high school again, finishing it in night school. Miraculously, I got into York University. Now, that's not to say anything about York, University of Toronto, but I somehow got into York University.
And it's not a miracle either. There's a place and time for everything. That was just your time.
This is very true. Anyways, I'm grateful, but I got into York and I was taking business, and at the same time, there was a sort of passion for business that was growing inside of me, and so I went to York for business, and I was finding that what I was learning at York was not what I wanted to learn. There was a lot of theoretical concepts, but there wasn't enough practical concept, and I wanted to learn, how do I start a business today? And so I ended up dropping out of York. And then I got a job at McDonald's. And I know that sounds really weird, but McDonald's teaches you how to run a multi-million-dollar company. And so I got a job at McDonald's, worked my way up the ranks, and then became a salary manager, so a first assistant manager. And they taught me everything about business. They taught me labor management, inventory management, people management, accounting, you name it. And I was essentially running a $5 million business. Took that knowledge that I got from McDonald's, and then eventually I left McDonald's to start Inspired Initiative, which is one of the companies that I have right now. Right. I think one of the driving forces behind starting Inspired Initiatives, which is a youth development company, really on a mission to help young people develop the skills, knowledge, and the competencies that they need to thrive in their future, was the fact that when I was working at McDonald's, I was overseeing, I would say 95% of our staff were under the age of 25, and they would often have a lot of challenges that they would bring to me. They would bring relationship challenges. They would bring school challenges. They would bring family challenges. And I began to see that there is this gap. School is not providing life skills. They're not teaching people how to thrive in their life. They're not getting it at home, because by the time they get home from school, either their parents may be at work or the young people have to go out and work. So they're not getting it at home, they're not getting it at school. So where exactly are they getting it? So I wanted to create an organization that would be sort of the middle ground, or that space where these youth were getting fed in that capacity. And so, that was my first entry point into business. And then from there, I fell in love. I fell in love with this idea of business, and then I started opening up restaurants, and then financial markets and investing in stocks, and it just kept blossoming from there. So did all of that, and I don't have a degree. Surprisingly, I don't have any degree. So it's been a journey, mind you. That may sound very clean. That's the clean version. There was a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of failures, a lot of screw ups, a lot of burned bridges. But I'm still here and I'm still kicking. So listen,
PhD. There are lots of definition for that, but I have learned that street smart sometimes really, really overshadow the book smart aspect. It's a combination of both, I think.
Agreed.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And we here at the Now Talk Show, we honor you, because your path may not be the traditional path, but for really what you have done, that staple, as you're part of a beacon in society. Congratulations to you. We honor you here.
Thank you.
And of course, please go for it.
Wow. I should have went first. So I'm a child and youth worker. It took me a long time to get that path as well. I had a terrible high school education experience. I told you I failed out of the ninth grade. I worked my way through after my diagnosis, still trying to figure myself out. Even by the time I graduated, I wasn't even proud enough to want to go to my graduation. But, my mom wanted to be there. She wanted to see me. And so I made sure I went. After that, I started working odd jobs in retail. I did some work in security for years. And actually, funny enough, that's where I met Jeff. And so Jeff is the gentleman that put the book together. And so I met Jeff there. And I didn't know that it would end up here, which is amazing. But we've always been really cool. Like, that's family to me. And I somehow found my way to child and youth work. And that was the moment when I finally decided or found out that I had any kind of interest or smarts that I could share. And I found I really delved into learning about how to work with youth and trying to find a way there. And so from there, I went on to work in a group home with all teenage girls who were in CAS care. And then moved into working with youth who are incarcerated. So in an open custody facility with some of the toughest kids that we see in the city. So that was a whole experience. And then I found my way now to education. And so I'm a child and youth worker in a high school now, working predominantly with students with autism on the ASD spectrum. But I have worked with students who are having behavioral issues, who are dealing with mental health issues as well. So that's where I am in terms of my education. I'm just trying to work my way and be who I needed, just like Chris said earlier, who I needed when I was going through the system.
Right. Wow. Again, Nicholas, we salute you. On behalf of the Now Talk Show, we also honor you. Gentlemen, we don't have enough time. I know you guys just skim over the meat and potatoes to how potent your background, your learning experience. We haven't even tapped into the emotion. Like, what was the awakening moment when you actually felt the tears coming down your eyes? When, as you said, you thought you got over it, but here it is, you're still experiencing it in real time. So this was the question that I'll ask you. And again, I'm throwing it out there, but either of you, please, I'm asking you guys to answer this. What would you tell your younger self today, where you are right now? What would you tell that little boy that it just looked like the world was just so impossible?
Man, that is a great question. I think for me, the I guess 3 words, 3 or 4 words, depending on how you look at it. It's not over. It's not over.
That's powerful.
That was I think for me, that was the biggest challenge, is losing hope and feeling that what I was going through was it for me. And I think even if I were to share a message to, everyone watching this and whoever will be watching on the broadcast, just recognizing that it is not over, that there are seasons in everybody's life. And I think it's all about perspective.
Wow.
Depending on what it is that you're going through, it can either make you bitter or it can make you better. And if you move towards the better, it'll shift your perspective, and it'll help you to reframe. It may not necessarily lessen the blow. If you go through a death in the family, if you're going through breakups, it may not necessarily lessen the blow, but it gives you a sense of hope. And I think that is when you look at people who commit suicide, or it's the loss of hope that makes them feel that there's nothing else worth living for.
Right.
And I think that for me was what I was missing. Just to have that person tell me that it's not over, that the best is yet to come, and not in a cliche way, but in a way that this is just a season of your life. Last thing I'll say, and I'll throw it over to Nicholas, is that I had a friend who in grade 12, he committed suicide. And so he had a bad breakup with one of his with his girlfriend at the time. He would have been 17 years old, 17, 18 years old. And I'm 34 now. He would have been the same age as me. And I look back on his life and I think to myself, 17 years old, can you imagine taking your life at 17 years old when you have all of these years left to live?
Right.
And I ask myself, if he was alive today, if he was with us today, and he looked at that period of his life, I guarantee you he would have just said to himself, well, it's just that one blotch, or that one allocation, or that one period of his life. And I think that is, for me, the biggest thing is just recognizing that it doesn't matter where you are and what you're going through. Simply, it is not over. That is it.
Wow. Okay. Whew. Go ahead, Nicholas.
I agree with you, and that's exactly what I would tell myself as well. My younger self, I would tell him that this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And there's all these things that come in your way as you're going, and it feels like, what's the point of continuing? What's the point of continuing to try? I might as well just give up. And there's so much more to do, and there's so much other ways that you can build on these small little wins that bring you to the big win. And I think that even as an adult, I have to remember that it's not over. It's that I'm still going, and that every day, even though it's challenging to work through a lot of things, that it's still going, and I still got to keep learning, and still got to keep working, and I still got to keep being dad and husband and all these things that make life great. And so I agree with you, Chris, and that's exactly the same lesson that I would teach myself as a younger self, is that you got to remember that it's a marathon.
Wow. Gentlemen, you have expressed your emotions. I'm now going to ask you a very pivotal question. How did you guys propose to your wives? It's important that we have a balance. We need the romantic side now, the softer side to your masculinity.
Do you want to go first, Chris?
All right.
Now you want him to go first.
I could go.
All of a sudden, Nicholas is being the polite guy now. Okay, I'll go first. This is actually a really interesting story. So, okay. I proposed to my wife on July 12th of 2019.
I'm sorry. How did you know this woman, that was the woman, this is it, for her to be your wife, for you to propose?
Yeah, so we'd been together we'd been together for maybe 7 years, 6 to 7 years prior to that. And just seeing how she navigated my immaturity, my challenges, and her love for me, and the fact that she remained by my side despite my immaturity and the challenges that I was dealing with, and a lot of the trauma. Definitely, that was, I think, for me, one of the true indicators that she's here. She's here, and you don't want to lose her. So that was one thing. I proposed to her last year, and it's interesting because we both love the water. Now, I can't swim. She's a phenomenal swimmer. I can't swim, but I love being by or on the water in the boat, somewhere safe. And so I proposed to her on a boat. We rented out a boat. I proposed to her there. But the reason why I said that this story is interesting is because shortly thereafter, maybe about 90 days after, we took a break. So we separated. We actually separated. And so we consider that sort of season of our life to be the 90-day fiance. That
Yes. Yes.
The reason why we took some time apart is because we recognized that there was a lot of healing that we did not do, both of us, and the trauma and the pain and the experiences were leaking out into the decisions and affecting our relationship. And so we recognized that, we need to take time apart so that we can do some deep work on ourselves. And so we did that. We took about maybe a few months And it was tough because not only did we not know if we were going to get back together again, but we had people asking questions, the nosy folk, when's the wedding? When you start planning the wedding? All of those crazy questions. And so it was a difficult period, but then when we came back together, it was so much more holistic, our relationship. It was so much more wholesome. The intimacy was there because we took the time to actually work on our individual selves.
Yes.
And so I often say that I think a lot of times our relationship issues are not necessarily relationship issues. They're singleness issues. And it's because we do not deal with certain things when we are single.
That's
and
right.
so quick to jump into other relationships that oftentimes we carry that baggage over into our next relationship. And so, we had to take the time apart. We looked stupid, we looked silly, but we did it. And I think that it paid dividends for where we are right now. So that's and I had to actually repropose. She gave me back the ring, and then I ended up reproposing in December. So yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, Nicholas, go ahead.
Okay, so I've always known that I want to be married. I've always been searching, and I went through some doozies. I found that people that I didn't match with, and when I found my wife, it's a funny story because years before I had met her, I had seen her and marked her face, and when
marked her face
in my mind.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that I logged it in my mental Rolodex,
Okay.
and so I said, "Who is this girl? I want to know who she is." And I was too shy to ask, or maybe I was in a relationship at another time when I saw her. So the opportunity never ended up blossoming until one day I made a little funny comment on Facebook under a picture of her. And that was the first interaction. And then slowly we just got to meet each other, and I kind of felt like, like this is something. And then my mom saw her, met her, and she had these vibes, and she said, "Well, so are we gonna get married?" I said, "Mom, it's 1 year, But I think people recognize it sometimes before you do, and then I definitely recognize it. We bought a home, and I just finished college, and so I was just getting my career started. So we got the house, and I didn't have the ring yet. But about a month or two later, I bought the ring, and I hid it, and I had it in the house for about a month, sweating every day that she was home and I wasn't, that she would find it. And one day on her birthday weekend, it was October 8th, and her birthday is the 10th. And we had a conversation about being married. And she said, she wants to be married before 30. I said, maybe you have to wait till you're 31. And it was a whole big issue. But I had known that the next day I was going to take her out to dinner and get down on one knee. And I took her out to dinner to a nice little secluded restaurant, and pulled the ring out my sock, and she was shocked. And there it was. We've been married for almost 8 years now, and it's all been happy and good and growth.
Wow, gentlemen, I salute you. I salute you. I absolutely salute you. You have provided an ointment to lots of half-healed heart, not just for men, but also for women. You brought your realness tonight, and I know that you have reached out. You have helped a couple, a person, a gentleman, and of course, a woman as well, who just needs to hear the realness of a real man. So again, we want to say thank you so very much for accepting our invitation on the Now Talk Show. And I believe, could there be another chapter to this book, another edition, and perhaps 10 will become 20 men? And we just keep multiplying. You never know. You just never know. Or it could be the 10 men meet the 10 women. And, you just never know, because your visionary, he really brought forth something that is a beacon. Yeah. And what happens with a light? You can't hide it. Yeah. It's obviously day or night. It has a purpose, right? To guide persons. Yeah. So again, to the team, and I can't wait to see the other gentlemen, other distinguished gentlemen. as we continue to interview the other halves and the other halves of the book. Again, thank you so very much for joining us. We've just about run out of time, ladies and gentlemen. And I know you're saying, oh my goodness, there's so much more that you would have preferred us to cover, but I'm pretty sure they will come back again. Perhaps we'll have this after the COVID, we'll do a live stage and all of them will come and we just, do a great meet and greet and stuff. Would you guys be open to that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Good. Perfect. So this is an open invitation. And as the rest of the team come, of course, I will personally send the invitation out. So we do a live broadcast, again, have the book so people can meet you. Men, I'm sure, that you have just lit a spark in them that, wait a minute, I can be seen, I can be heard, and my emotion is real. And if you guys have overcome and pivotal point to where you're now authors and married and, awesome initiative. Thank you so very much again for coming. And I'd like to say to our audience again, thank you so very much for giving us your time. Your time is the most important thing that you can offer to anyone. And again, on behalf of the team on the Now Talk Show, we would like to say thank you for joining us. Once again, the Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, integrative medicine. That's right. Integrative medicine and trichology. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know where to get this book, where can they get this book?
They can hop on Amazon.
Amazon, good.
On Amazon.
And do you guys have personal links that perhaps they can reach out to you and they can get their copy?
Yeah, you can hit me up on at Mr.Inspired on Instagram. We also have the New Me Movement actually on Facebook as well. You can definitely hit that up. And I believe we're on Instagram as well, New Me Movement, also on Instagram.
Yes. Okay. Well, again, hold the book up, please. Okay, so there's the copy, ladies and gentlemen. Hit them up on Amazon. What's the cost for the book?
I think it's 20. I think it's 20.
Yeah.
20. Okay, good. So get yourself a good cup of tea or what you like to drink, because I know this is going to be the kind of book that you snuggle up with because of the wealth of wisdom and knowledge that is documented in ink, meaning it cannot be erased. Right. Once again, we believe that when men speak, they shape the world. And we are just getting to chip the surface of great men who are making great shape to the world to impact our youth, our women, and of course, other men. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us on the Now Talk Show. On behalf of the team, have a good night.